Some disappearances don't start with screams. They start with a feeling, a quiet dread, a phone that suddenly stops ringing, a loved one who should have walked through the door, but never does. And what haunts families the most is not the crime itself, it's the not knowing. No body, no answers, no goodbye, just an empty chair at the dinner table, and 1,000 questions that will never be answered. Tonight, we're diving into true unsolved disappearance cases. Stories where people vanished as if the world simply erased them. And case one is the kind of disappearance that will make you look over your shoulder every time you walk into your own home. On April 12, 2016, 29-year-old Leah Harmon walked into her small, gray-painted townhouse in Cedar Ridge, Oregon, and was never seen again. Leah wasn't famous. She wasn't wealthy. She didn't have dangerous enemies. She was a night shift nurse. Quiet, reliable, predictable. But what happened inside that house after she closed the door behind her has tormented her family for almost a decade. Leah's final hours were painfully ordinary. She clocked out of work at 7:14 a.m., drove 22 minutes home, stopped at a gas station for coffee, texted her sister, "Home, exhausted, call you when I wake up." Nothing strange, nothing ominous. But 3 hours later, her sister Mia called, then called again, then again. No answer. At first, Mia assumed Leah had just collapsed into bed. A 12-hour night shift could do that to anyone. But by 5 p.m., the call still went unanswered. By 7 p.m., Mia drove to Leah's townhouse. And when she pulled up, the first detail hit her like a punch. Leah's porch light was on. It was one of her habits. She only turned it on at night, when she was expecting someone, or when she was home alone and nervous. But it was still daylight. Why would she turn it on now? Mia thought. She rang the bell. No answer. She knocked. Nothing. She called her name through the door. Silence. Finally, Mia used the spare key Leah had given her. And the moment she stepped inside, her stomach dropped. Leah's shoes were still by the door. Her purse sat on the counter. Her keys lay exactly where she always left them, on the small wooden bowl next to the microwave. Even her phone was on the sofa. Every sign pointed to one thing. She never planned to leave. She never even got ready to go out. One moment she was inside. The next, gone. Mia walked further in. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Leah always left the TV on for background noise, even when she slept. But now there was nothing. Just an eerie, heavy stillness you usually only feel in abandoned places. Mia went room to room, calling her name. First softly, then louder, then nearly screaming it. The bathroom? Empty. Bedroom? Empty. Laundry room? Empty. And then she reached the basement door. It was open, just slightly, as if someone had closed it. But not all the way. Leah hated the basement. She avoided it. She once told her sister the place felt wrong. A few months earlier, she had even asked a friend to help her change a light bulb down there because she didn't want to go alone. So seeing the door ajar immediately felt off. Mia pushed it open. Cold air rushed up from below. It smelled damp, unsettling. She flipped the switch. The single yellow bulb flickered to life. And there, right at the bottom of the stairs, was something that made her freeze. A white coffee mug lay shattered on the floor. Leah never took dishes downstairs. She ate upstairs. Always. The handle of the mug was broken clean off. Coffee had splattered across the concrete floor. It looked like it had been dropped, or knocked out of her hand. And then Mia noticed something else. Footprints. Small ones. Leah's size. Barefoot. Walking toward the center of the basement. And stopping. Just stopping. Like someone walked her down there. And she never walked back up. On the far wall, near an old storage shelf, Mia saw a smear of something dark. Not blood, but soot, or ash, or dirt. She couldn't tell. But the part that made her skin crawl, the smear was a handprint. Small, clear, like someone pressed their palm against the wall. As they were pushed, or pulled, Mia ran upstairs and called the police. The investigation begins. When officers arrived, they found no signs of forced entry, nothing stolen, no suspicious fingerprints, no footprints except Leah's, no neighbors who heard anything unusual. It was as if someone walked into the house, led Leah downstairs, and erased every trace of their presence before vanishing into thin air. The basement had no windows, only one door leading out. The door Mia had found slightly open, but when police swabbed the handprint, it came back as Leah's, and that made everything worse, because the print was too high for her natural reach, too high unless she was lifted or forced against the wall. Police determined Leah was alive, at least until 10 a.m. A neighbor's security camera caught the faint sound of something dropping around 10:11 a.m. Some officers believed that was the mug, but after that, no noises, no screams, no door opening, nothing. It was almost impossible. You couldn't leave that house without the front door being heard or the back door creaking open, unless you left with someone Leah trusted enough to go quietly with, someone she opened the door for without hesitation, someone she didn't fear until it was too late. 2 days after her disappearance, Leah's boss reported something chilling. Her email password had been changed. Police traced the login to a public library 40 miles away. On the account were 3 unsent drafts. "I'm okay. Tell Mia not to worry. Stop looking." The emails were typed, but never sent. Investigators believed they were written under duress, someone forcing Leah to reassure her family, just enough to buy time. The account was accessed again, this time a single. After 3 days, the account was accessed again. This time, a single message was deleted. A message Leah had sent to a coworker the night before she vanished. Police later recovered it from the server, and the last thing Leah ever wrote was, "Can we talk? I think someone followed me home last night." At first, investigators assumed it was paranoia. Long night shifts, exhaustion, stress, all of it could distort perception. But when they checked the hospital's exterior cameras, they realized Leah wasn't imagining anything. At 6:43 a.m., 18 minutes before Leah clocked out for the last time, a man appeared on the hospital's west lot camera. Tall, hooded, standing near the row of staff vehicles. He wasn't looking at the building. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't doing anything a normal person might do. He was staring directly at Leah's car. He stood there for nearly 7 minutes, unmoving, just facing her vehicle like he was memorizing it. When Leah walked out of the building at 7:14 a.m., the man stepped behind a pillar. He didn't emerge until she had started her engine. And then, as she drove off, he walked to the sidewalk and followed on foot, not running, not chasing, just following the direction of her route. Investigators widened their search radius, but the man never appeared on city traffic cameras. No face, no car, nothing to identify him. But then something else surfaced, a detail that changed the timeline. Leah's drive home was 22 minutes long. Police confirmed the route using her regular GPS logs. But on the morning she vanished, there was a 3-minute gap between when she left the main highway and when she turned into her neighborhood. 3 minutes unaccounted for. Police canvassed the area where the gap occurred, and they found a small pull-off on the side of the road, barely noticeable, shielded by tall pines. Fresh tire marks. One set matched Leah's car. The other? Too worn, too faded. Possibly an older pickup. Both sets overlapped, like 2 vehicles stopped nose to nose. Or someone stepped in front of Leah's car, and she hit the brakes. 1 week after the disappearance, a neighbor 4 houses down had his security system checked after a recent break-in. While reviewing footage, the technician found something from the morning Leah vanished. At 10:17 a.m., just minutes after the sound of the mug shattering in Leah's basement, a figure walked down the street. Not fast, not panicked, casual, calm, like someone taking a normal morning stroll. But there were details that made the detective freeze. The figure wore a gray hoodie, same as the hospital footage. They walked with their hands in their pockets, never swinging. And halfway down the block, they glanced directly toward Leah's house. The hardest part? The camera angle captured only the person's side. No face. But the most disturbing detail came next. As the figure passed the neighbor's driveway, a car drove by, slowly. A white sedan. its license plate missing, intentionally removed, and the gray hoodie figure got into the passenger side. Without hesitation, the car drove off. Police canvassed the entire neighborhood. Nobody recognized the vehicle. Nobody recognized the figure. But a retired couple 2 streets over reported something overlooked at first. At 10:40 a.m., they saw a white sedan speeding away from the wooded trail entrance behind the ridge, the same one connected to Leah's backyard. The trail behind Leah's townhouse wasn't well maintained. It was narrow, muddy, and mostly avoided by locals. But investigators pushed in. 50 yards in, they found a small clearing, an area where the soil had been recently disturbed. They dug. No body, no clothing, no personal items, just a single object buried in the soil. A burner phone, water damaged, half dead, but still recoverable. When tech specialists examined it, they found no contacts, no messages, no photos, no apps, except for one thing, the call log. The phone had dialed one number, twice, on the morning of April 12th. Both calls lasted under 10 seconds. The number dialed? Leah's. Police concluded the phone had been used to make sure she was home, or lure her somewhere, or send the fake reassurance messages. But here was the problem. The calls happened after the time they believed she disappeared. The impossible timeline. The mug shattered at 10:11 a.m. The footsteps ended in the basement. The hoodie figure was seen on camera at 10:17 a.m. The white sedan was seen leaving the woods at 10:40 a.m. The burner phone calling her twice logged those calls at 11:02 and 11:10 a.m. It didn't make sense. How could someone call Leah if Leah wasn't around to answer? Or was the phone being used to make it appear she was still alive? Investigators suspected the burner phone was planted to deliberately confuse the timeline and derail the investigation. And that's when the case took its darkest turn yet. The coworker no one paid attention to. Her name was Jenna Cole, a fellow night shift nurse, worked beside Leah for nearly 4 years. At first, she seemed devastated by the disappearance. She openly cried during the staff meeting. She brought meals to the search team. She was one of the loudest voices demanding an investigation, almost too loud. When detectives asked for statements, Jenna claimed Leah mentioned someone watching her, but she didn't know who. But when they cross-checked her story with other staff members, no one else recalled Leah saying anything like that. Not once, not ever. Then, police learned something else. Jenna's lie. Jenna told investigators she went straight home after her shift that morning. But traffic cameras showed her car heading toward Cedar Ridge, not toward her neighborhood, just 10 minutes after Leah left the hospital. Her explanation? I was going to get breakfast, but the diner she claimed she visited was closed that day due to a gas leak. When confronted, she changed her story, then changed it again. Detectives began to wonder, was Jenna following Leah? Was she the person outside the hospital? Was she connected to the man in the gray hoodie? But then came the discovery that spiraled the case into something far more sinister. The hidden folder. When Leah's laptop was recovered from her home, investigators found a password-protected folder on her desktop. It contained screenshots, notes, names, dates, and one photo that made every officer in the room go silent. A blurry image taken from Leah's bedroom window. A figure standing outside in the dark, facing her house, motionless, hooded, the timestamp, 2 nights before she vanished. The same figure from the hospital footage, the same height, the same posture, meaning someone had targeted Leah, watched her, followed her, and planned every step. But who? And why? And where was she taken? The answers were still buried in the details. The discovery of that blurry, hooded figure outside Leah's window should have broken the case open. Instead, it exposed a deeper, far more disturbing truth. Because when investigators enhanced the image, they realized something they had overlooked. The figure wasn't standing in the middle of the yard. They were standing exactly where Leah's motion sensor light should have turned on. But the light had stayed off that night, meaning only one of 2 things could be true. Either the bulb had been removed, or someone had disabled it, intentionally. The detectives returned to Leah's home, unscrewed the porch light, and checked it. Inside the casing was a thin piece of material wedged between the bulb and the socket. A piece of black electrical tape. Someone had tampered with it. Someone who knew the house. Someone who wasn't afraid of getting close. And that discovery led investigators down a path they had avoided until now. 2 weeks after the disappearance, the Cedar Ridge Police Department received an envelope.no return address, mailed from 50 miles away. Typed, not handwritten. Inside was a single sentence. You should look at the person who stood beside her every night. At first, detectives assumed it referred to a coworker, but the hospital staff list was long and nobody stood out as a clear suspect. Then the second letter came. Inside it was only a name, Jenna, and suddenly, everything pointed back to the coworker who had cried the loudest, volunteered the most, and insisted she knew nothing. Neatly organized, dust-free, hidden under blankets. Inside the box were printed photos of Leah, notes written in Jenna's handwriting, Leah's schedule. A search warrant on Jenna Cole's apartment revealed something chilling. Inside her bedroom closet was a shoe box, neatly organized, dust-free, hidden under blankets. Inside the box were printed photos of Leah, notes written in Jenna's handwriting, Leah's schedule, Leah's locker combination. It wasn't a coworker's notes. It was an obsession. Detectives began to suspect something far darker and unreciprocated. Fixation disguised as friendship. But why take Leah? What was the motive? The answer came from something found at the very bottom of the box. A printed email from Leah to HR. An email Leah drafted but never sent. It read, I'm uncomfortable with how close Jenna is getting. She shows up at my home uninvited. She watches me leave the building. Please advise. The timestamp? 8 days before she disappeared. And yet, she never sent it. Someone may have stopped her. Or worse, someone may have read it before she could. When detectives questioned Jenna about the file, her story unraveled instantly. She claimed she only kept the notes to help Leah feel safe. The photos were for scrapbooking, the schedules were for carpooling, and the email was just a misunderstanding. But her alibi crumbled when they pulled her phone records. Her device connected to a tower halfway between the hospital and Leah's home. At 7:32 a.m., the exact time Leah was driving that route. Still, without hard evidence that Jenna entered the house, detectives couldn't charge her. At least not yet. Remember the white sedan without a license plate? The one that picked up the hooded figure? Police finally found it, not on the road, but abandoned deep in the woods 2 towns over. Inside were fast food receipts, a torn hoodie, rope fibers, and a single item that made every investigator go silent. Leah's key fob. But there was something else inside the glove compartment. A crumpled piece of paper, written in rushed handwriting. She knows. We need to fix this. The writing didn't match Jenna's. It was a man's handwriting. This meant something that terrified investigators. Jenna wasn't working alone. Someone else followed Leah. Someone else watched her. Someone else walked into that basement with her. But who? After digging into Jenna's family background, investigators learned she had a younger brother, Kyle, a drifter with no stable employment, frequent run-ins with law enforcement, and a history of stalking-related incidents. Kyle lived off and on at Jenna's apartment, sometimes for days at a time, sometimes weeks. He fit the height, the build, the posture, even the hoodie. Jenna denied he was in town on the day of the disappearance, claiming he lived 3 states away. That was a lie. A neighbor had security footage of Kyle entering Jenna's apartment building 2 days before Leah vanished. And when police checked the burner phone recovered from the woods, Kyle's fingerprints were on the battery. But by the time they issued a warrant, Kyle had fled. He hasn't been seen since. After months of piecing the evidence together, investigators believe this is what likely happened. Jenna became obsessed with Leah. Leah tried to distance herself. Jenna feared rejection and confided in her brother. Kyle began following Leah. The siblings planned to confront her. Something went wrong inside the basement, and Leah was taken by force. Theories vary on what happened next, but the presence of the burner phone, the white sedan, and the disturbed soil behind the ridge all point to one horrifying conclusion. Leah didn't leave willingly, and she didn't leave alone. To this day, no remains were found, no confirmed sightings, no confessions, just a house with a porch light that still flickers on every anniversary of her disappearance, left on by her sister Mia, who refuses to move away. Mia once said in an interview, "People think the not knowing gets easier. It doesn't. It just gets heavier." Leah's room remains untouched, her shoes by the door, her phone still resting on the couch where she last placed it, frozen, waiting, as if one day she might walk back inside. If Leah's story shook you, if it made you look at your own front door a little differently, then don't let her disappear again. Cases like this go cold because people forget. Don't let this be another missing face lost to time. If you have information, if you live near Cedar Ridge in 2016, or if you recognize the people in this story, speak up. Share this video. Keep Leah's name alive. Someone out there knows what happened in that house. And the moment we stop talking about her is the moment the people responsible finally win.